So let's just talk specifically about MS. Now, you mentioned briefly before, it's essentially the immune system attacks these nerve fibers and the myelin sheathing, I think it's called, um, which is kind of a fatty substance. I've always heard it kind of. There's a metaphor there with a wire, like an electrical wire that's insulated. And can you talk a little bit about kind of specifically the mechanism of multiple sclerosis, and then as you began to identify this degradation of myelin as one of the key issues, how you then um, developed a protocol to or an understanding of what are the building blocks of myelin. You were just doing this very it sounds like it just makes total sense, but you were just dissecting the issue and just putting one foot in front of the other.
I suppose it begins with the supplements that I'm zeroed in on mitochondria. That I start uh, having a deeper understanding of what are the nutrients that mitochondria need, and then coming back to myelin and understanding myelin. We presently think the immune cells are attacking the myelin, and it's sort of a spotty lesions appear in the spinal cord, in the brain, and so it's not all myelin that's destroyed, but it destroys myelin in particular at a spot. You might have one spot or two spots or four spots or 20 spots. And so the current understanding is that we will give you a drug that interferes with your immune cells function in some capacity, either blunting them all globally or blunting a particular step. No one has had the approach of, well, what do we need to make myelin? So I began to think about that. Well, what do we know? What are the scientists saying that we need for brain cells? What are the scientists saying that we need for making myelin? And so there were a few review papers that talked about some of these nutrients with vitamins and minerals, essential fats, that basically is about making sure you have plenty of great nutrition. Uh, uh, it's embarrassing to go back and look at, what did I learn in medical school about nutrition? Low fat diet, avoid cholesterol, use margarine instead of butter. And that was sort of like all that I really remember from my nutrition that I got in medical school. And then during residency, did I get any nutrition? Again, it was avoid cholesterol, use margarine, avoid butter, avoid eggs. And so I had followed a very low fat diet, um, um, legumes, rice, vegetables. So it certainly looked like a very heart healthy diet. As I got more curious that mitochondria were the solution, and what do brain cells need, then fat, because myelin is fat, and cell membranes are the fatty parts of the cell membrane that are wrapped again and again and again to make the myelin. And it's like, okay, that turns out to need cholesterol, omega-3 fats, so eicosapetanoic acid, docosahexaenoic acid, that's in cold water fish, grass-fed, grass-finished meats. Omega-6 fats, those are in nuts and seeds. Um, uh, Flax oil, hemp oil would be good sources of those as well. Because you and I, we lack the molecular machinery to make the omega-3 bond or the omega-6 bond. And those fats are essential for our cell membrane. They're essential for some of our neurotransmitters. So you have to eat those. We also need to have cholesterol. While we can make cholesterol, if you're on a very, very low fat diet, sometimes you're blood cholesterol levels are so low, you can't make enough sex hormones, cortisol hormones, and you're having difficulty having enough cholesterol for your cell membranes as well. So a very low-fat diet can get you into trouble that way.
Yeah. What was the standard of care at the point where, you were doing some of this research? What was the typical standard of care?
So the standard of care would be to take a disease-modifying drug. And in the 2000, when I was diagnosed, that would have been one of the interferons, such as Avonex or beta-seron, or a decoy protein called Paxone. And then if you, at the point that you converted to the progressive phase of the illness, then you take a form of chemotherapy called mitoxantrone, which, by the way, gives you a 2% chance of converting to leukemia each time you take it, plus it's toxic to your heart, so it increases the probability of heart failure. So it's certainly a very, very toxic drug. And there's a limit to how many total doses that you can get in your lifetime. So that was the next thing that I took. There was zero emphasis on diet. You're basically told, eat what you want, enjoy your life. It doesn't really matter. Fortunately, my physicians did check for B vitamin, B12. Not everyone knows to check for B12. And they did suggest that since I'd been a vegetarian, to take a B12 supplement, which I did do. Although I will give my neurologist credit, they were the one who introduced me to the work of Lauren Cordain, and did mention the work of Ashton Embry. So reading their two papers in their books, that led me to the decision and it was a big decision at the time, to abandon the low-fat vegetarian diet and go back to eating meat.